Hello and welcome to Constellation League, a Warhammer podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott,
And I'm Paul.
and we are lucky to have one of the local Kingston TOs with us, Shannon, who runs a lot of the games through the Nexus uh, comic gaming store up in the Kingston area. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be
Yeah,
here.
I was really excited to get you on the show since basically it was your events that got me into actually starting to play this game and starting to learn it and get out there. And
Oh,
Hmm.
it's
it
awesome.
really kicked off for us with your Welcome to 10th edition 40K tournament, which
Yeah.
Scott and I had an absolute blast playing.
Hmm.
And
Start
essentially
started off the Constellation League real
Yeah,
early, real
really early.
early.
It was our
But
opening Consolation League tournament. I think we were amongst the bottom five for sure, but
comfortably. And
comfortably. Yeah,
but
Wow. You survived a summer tournament at Nexus
yeah,
yeah.
that was
Oh
super
yes,
yeah.
full and super hot. So
yeah.
Yes, it was.
It was awesome.
That was a hell of an event. Yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, so we wanted to get you on the show and talk about your experience in Warhammer in general, and then specifically into how you ended up becoming a tournament organizer and started running these great events in Kingston.
Hmm.
So
awesome.
what brought you into the hobby?
My son,
Okay.
we moved here in like 2004 to
Okay.
to Kingston, and I was always a D&D player since I've
Hmm.
been 10 years old.
Okay.
So that was my hobby fix. And then my son, who was about 12 at the time, said, "Hey, I really want to play this Warhammer game." And I'm
Hmm.
like, "Okay, all right, let's do it." Got him a bunch of stuff, and because he was into it, I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it too." So I
Yeah.
got some really badly painted metal wood elf miniatures from the old Warhammer Fantasy
Nice.
that I had to sell after I learned how to paint because the paint was so thick on it. I just couldn't bear to look at
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And we started with Warhammer Fantasy, and that was pretty quickly after coming to Kingston.
Hmm.
There was a great Warhammer Fantasy tournament community here.
Hmm.
Uh, Great bunch of guys. They were totally welcoming, helped me learn the game,
Hmm.
totally welcoming to my son. So, it's great when you have 12-year-old kid who's like super into this new
Yeah.
hobby and this new idea to
Hmm.
get that kind of welcoming, um, which is kind of interesting because 20 years later we've got some young players
Yeah.
in the hobby now in the community.
Yeah.
That's right. Dave
Um,
and Tommy, they've been on the show.
yes, I saw
Yeah, that's right.
that. And the whole plan right there, because even when Dave contacted me about Tommy and saying,
Mhm.
do you think it's okay? It's like, no, we need young people in this hobby
Hmm.
100%.
because I can't do this forever.
Yeah, yeah. If anyone wants to take over,
Yeah,
please.
Please do.
just let me know.
Yeah.
It's been about 14 years now that I've been the TO
Hmm.
in
Oh my
Kingston.
God.
Wow.
Yeah, I started in so when I first kind of came in, 40K was at like there were some tournaments going on, but
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the addition that was happening at the time or
Hmm.
we lost a lot of people.
Okay.
And it was kind of shortly after I got into it. So I was all eager to play. I wanted to play
Hmm.
as much as possible. I had my Tyranids and I thought they were the
Hmm.
best army in the world. And I still kind of think that. But um, it was something that I was really into now. And my son was playing and we were trying to,
Right.
a group going. So at the time there was a forum online that people were in, but they had problems with their servers, so it was
Hmm.
constantly going down and stuff. So my son and I decided in about I think it was May 2010, we're like, let's make our own forum. So
Oh,
we created
okay.
the Kingston Warhammer forum,
Okay.
and
Awesome.
we're like, let's get everybody together. Let's get everybody who plays any of these games. There
Right.
were people that were playing, 40K, but there were people
Hmm.
playing Warhammer Fantasy. There were
Hmm.
War Machine and Hordes, where it was happening right around that time as well.
Right.
Malifaux, which I always say is the my favorite game that I never get to play.
Hmm.
Um, that was going on at the time. So there were lots of different games, and we're just trying to get them all in one spot.
That's so cool.
Right.
So then the people that were running the tournaments up till then, they decided to step away from it. So about the end of 2010, I started running tournaments here.
Hmm.
And start off small, and I try to do a tournament for every system, and
Hmm.
Hmm.
took on way more than I could possibly do. So it wasn't a fantastic
Yeah.
idea, but it was learning through just doing it, right? Just having a passion
Right.
for wanting to get a community built. Um, so one of the turning points for me was around 2011 and 2012. I went to the Astronomicon tournaments in Toronto.
Okay.
Okay.
Now they had stopped for a while. I
Hmm.
think they're coming back though, but their whole thing was about narrative tournaments.
Hmm.
Every
Okay.
prize was a draw prize.
Hmm.
Very
Every
cool.
mission was a custom mission.
Okay.
And
Very
Very
my
cool.
fun.
light bulbs just went on. I'm like, we
Yeah.
could do this. We could
Yeah.
totally do this here.
Yeah.
Um, so I started running our club championship tournament in 2012.
Okay.
And originally, even though it's kind of morphed into one of our more competitive tournaments,
Hmm.
it was at the beginning, it was all custom missions. It
Okay.
was all crazy scenarios that, one of the tables had a Titan on it that was walking across the board. You try to kill it while it's killing you, and all kinds of stuff like this. That a lot of it was inspired directly from Astronomicon. Great bunch of guys. Great
Okay.
event. We had so much fun.
Amazing.
So then we started evolving, and in some ways, the club champs took on a more competitive edge over time,
Okay.
as did our teams event, which was also very narrative at the beginning. So, but sort of the cry from the community was, we want to play, we want to see who
Hmm.
roll the best
Yeah.
dice or whatever. So it's like, okay, that's fine. And I will reluctantly concede that we will take away the custom missions and we'll play straight Warhammer on these days.
Okay.
But I need my narrative fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when I started bringing in other tournaments like the Secret Santa, the one that's actually going to be coming up
Yes.
in December
Okay.
that we're going to
Hmm.
see
This
at
December 1st. No, December 7th.
7th.
7th. December 1st
December
is the
7th,
is the Age of
Kingston Gaming
Sigmar.
Nexus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it filled up in 2 days. It's always a great time. It's by its definition, it's a complete friendly tournament.
Yep.
Hmm.
No hard lists are allowed. If
Right.
someone brings a list that's too much, we have a
Hmm.
talk with them and we look to adjust their list to make sure it's okay and friendly to everybody.
Hmm.
Everybody has to bring a wrap gift.
Hmm.
So at the
Yep.
end of it, there's a big
Yep.
Yankee swap
Yep.
That
for
was a hell
gifts.
of a lot of fun. That
That was fun.
honestly, when that kicked off, I was tired by the end of the tournament, but then sitting there and seeing that happen, that turned
Yeah.
into its own tournament.
It is its
Yeah.
own tournament.
It's its own
There,
tournament.
that's where
Yeah.
the whack players come in.
Yeah.
It's the Yankee swap. They're all like, "No, I'm getting that bottle of
Yeah.
whiskey or whatever it was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they really
Yeah.
wanted."
Exactly. It was the whiskey. I think that was the most popular thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
There was a whiskey, and I think it was a Company of Heroes or something like that that
Mm,
just kept swapping
Yes.
around
That's
to
right. One of
somebody.
those Warhammer Heroes figures.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And we
great fun.
do what's another narrative one we do is the Great Crusade. So you
Okay.
have to bring a named character, and it's their Great Crusade, and it's completely narrative based, custom missions,
That's
Very
all
really cool.
cool.
kind of
That's really, really cool.
the crazy stuff where your warlord has to do something cool,
Hmm.
even if
That's
he's
so
a
That
guardsman. He has to
That's
do
really
something
amazing.
cool.
That's
right.
an aspect that I haven't gotten into yet within the
Mm,
Warhammer stuff is the actual um campaign aspect to it of
yeah,
doing
Hmm.
it through there. Like it really entices me because I got into it through first starting D&D and then the kids wanted to do Warhammer. And I
Yeah.
always come back to they're kind of out of the Warhammer stuff because the games take so long.
yeah.
And it takes a lot of back and forth and that kind of thing. And I keep falling back on well, maybe if I did a narrative, maybe if I did something like that and
Hmm.
incorporated the D&D thing that they really love into the
Hmm.
Warhammer game, maybe that would get them back into it. So That's amazing that you actually still run those events and have them. And I assume the crowds just love it.
It's crazy. They sell out within a couple of days
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
every time.
incredible.
I,
So
I do
they,
I do love the club champs too. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's the narrative wacky fun 40K that I really like. I'm
That's
not
right.
Right.
really a super competitive player.
So do you ever hit up competitive tournaments, or do you basically stay local with the
I, I
tournaments you
have
kind
in the
of help
past.
host? Hmm.
I definitely have in the past, and years ago, I was probably more of a competitive player
Hmm.
where I wanted to win and I wanted
Hmm.
to have the best list and I wanted to have, fine tune everything and make the best moves and learn as much as I could tactically. And I found that it actually uh, it changed me a bit as a player.
Okay.
Like, to be perfectly honest with you, when I started caring too much about that
Right.
and going to some of these more competitive tournaments for a while at our club champs, we had some of the people that were going through LVO and that, like the Canadian players, come to our club championships. And of course, bringing a
Yeah.
different level of list that we
Hmm.
were not prepared for. So then,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's rise to the occasion. Let's take this on. Let's learn. Um, but then some of the fun went away
Yeah.
Okay.
and it wasn't as welcoming to new players. And I always remembered from before where we had all kinds of Warhammer fantasy players and not enough 40K players to play to even do a tournament at one point. It was
Crazy.
like, I we have to keep it fun
Hmm.
and we have to keep it accessible so that if you
Hmm.
are brand new and you have your gray army that you just put together that day,
Yeah.
you're welcome. Come on
Yeah.
Yeah.
out, have a great time. And even on our club champs, all the prizes are draw prizes. If you
Yeah.
lose every game, you have just as much chance as walking
Yeah.
away with a big, huge box set as
Hmm.
the person who won every game.
Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, that is a great idea and certainly like a fun little perk or incentive for new players. I know Scott and I think the first at the Welcome to 10th one,
Mhm.
Did you win? Was
I
it
think
Battle
I
Sisters or something like that?
I
Or
I won some Battle Sisters, and I think you maybe won a big box of Funko Pops. There was
yeah,
a huge box of like
that's
Funko
right.
Pops.
Yeah, I think that or was that at C or yeah, it was at that. It was
Yeah.
the
Uh,
mystery. It
you
was
won
one
the
of your
mystery
mystery
prize.
the
Yeah.
Yes.
mystery prize. Why not? Why not just throw your
Mike
why
at
not? It's
Mike
there
at
for fun.
Nexus always has a
He's
mystery
always
prize
got
at our big
something.
tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's great.
And I
Sometimes.
Funko Pops I think are great if you collect them. I don't
Yeah.
collect them, but
Yeah. I've still got them in my basement. My son collected them, so we put them down there. We've got them.
Perfect.
they've
There's a
got
couple
them.
duplicates, but they're there.
Yeah. So you said it changed you as a player. In what way did it change you as a player?
I The more competitive I got,
Hmm.
the less fun I started having
Okay.
Okay.
because
Okay.
I lost I, I kind of lost the more lighthearted beer and pretzel part of it
Sure.
because I was
Okay.
so worried about the tactics and making this move and then analyzing it afterwards and going, was this right? Because I was
Gotcha.
trying to prep for tournaments where I was
Sure.
Right.
going to be trying to win. Um, but you
And
know what? It's not like any of us are going to make millions of dollars playing this game.
No,
we'll
I'm more likely to spend it.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
So did that also impact your TOing? Like did it start to sap the fun out of being a TO or even how you approached events at that time? Where you did it kind of taint
My
them in
more
that way?
competitive time was actually just prior to me being a TO.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So um, I kind of took it on after that first Astro tournament
Okay.
because it kind of reignited this sort of uh, fantasy fun
Hmm.
way of looking at the game. So it
Hmm.
was less about tactics and more, wow, that was amazing.
Right.
And uh, it kind of switched in my head a little bit where it's such a cooperative game in a lot of ways,
Hmm.
even if you're competing against somebody else.
Yeah.
If you're cheering for your opponent doing something super cool, then it's a great game.
Yeah.
Your opponent has
Absolutely.
fun whether they win or lose. You have fun whether you win or lose.
Yeah.
And this game's all about those moments where something weird
Mhm.
happens and
Yes.
completely unexpected, and some guardsman shoots down a greater demon. Like
Yeah.
those are the stuff we all talk about at
Yeah.
lunch
Yeah.
break, at a tournament, and afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Or
How
some,
many deadly demises went off in sequence, like
yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. That is the stuff you tend to remember more rather than like, oh, I lost 60 to 91 and it was because I didn't, my deployment was off,
yeah,
or,
Mhm.
I got outmaneuvered on these primaries and that sort of stuff. So,
yeah, yeah.
no.
They had to make 8 6s, and God
Hmm.
damn it, didn't they do it?
Yeah, they did it. Every last one.
Every last
Everyone,
one.
every time.
So you don't go, you stay local now for tournaments.
I do stay local.
Yeah.
I've been getting the bug again to
Hmm.
travel,
Yeah,
do
sure.
some of
Mhm.
that stuff. My kids are all grown up, so
Yeah,
I've got the time. So
yeah.
It's
Uh,
It's
Go
really
on, Scott.
interesting. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it's really interesting hearing some of like listening to some of the other local podcasts and even getting out and playing up in Kingston and then playing out here in like the Oshawa Curtis area and then going into Toronto for a GT. It's interesting to see the different armies that are present in the different areas.
Hmm.
So I do encourage anybody that's out there to just run to the next town, run to the next
Hmm.
city that's got a tournament and see what their local meta is like because it is very different.
oh yeah.
Um,
Yes.
it'll open your eyes to completely different armies to play, and don't be surprised if you don't do well or you do surprisingly well, depending on your skill levels. But it's really great to get out there and get that little bit of freshness because then you bring it back
Hmm.
into your games, and it kind of reinvigorates you and brings you
Yeah.
back into the hobby a little bit more.
Well, and the
No.
painting too, right? Like
Hmm.
some of the tournaments I went to in Toronto, just mind blowing stuff with
Yeah.
the
Right.
display boards and all the amazing painting. It's just inspiring, right? You look at it, and you
It's
go, oh
phenomenal.
man, I want to be that someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great.
I had that at the local at the GT I was just at. I was looking at somebody's guard army and that kind of thing. And then I went back and looked at my Voten and I was like, ooh, I'm not up to snuff here.
Oh.
Yeah, I
Huh.
could have fine-tuned that brushing a little bit better.
The
But
next
yeah,
one, the next one, the next
Yeah.
one.
it
There's
is what
always
it
a
is.
next army.
There's
Exactly.
always a next army. But
Yes. It
so,
says the man with the
yeah,
gigantic cabinets behind him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
cow. That's
As we
amazing.
are, for those of those listening to this podcast on Spotify or an Apple podcast, Shannon in the background has looks like four, but there's probably more display cases that look
There's
like they're
8.
6 feet tall. So 8 display cases that are full, and they
Yeah.
look like they're full of painted miniatures. Is
Yes.
Yes.
that right?
Fully
Uh,
painted.
there's some gray in there.
There is some gray.
I'm
You've
unfortunately a hobby butterfly, so
okay,
I get so into an idea and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And
right?
then it's like, ooh, what's that over there? Squirrel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that model looks great. I'm gonna pick that one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or would look great? This on a space marine.
Yeah. So what armies are you playing at the moment? Maybe I should ask you what game systems are you focused on at the moment?
Right now I'm focused on 40K
Hmm.
primarily.
Okay.
And I do Age of Sigmar as well.
Yes.
I've I had a fully painted OCR Bone Reapers for Age of Sigmar, and then I saw some new
Nice.
models and I had to buy them. So so it's
So you
never
got some
quite done,
homework.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
I
nice looking army.
recently got into Kill Team a little bit. My son
Okay.
returned to miniature gaming and he's like, I really want to do Kill Team. So I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
let's buy some Kill
Okay.
Teams and try it out.
Yeah. One of my
Yeah.
nephews is really, he's coming down soon and he's like, can we play Kill Team? And I was like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to read the new rules
Yeah.
and
I played
figure out
one
how to
game. It
play it.
seemed super fun.
It looks like a hell of a lot of fun. I played one game in the last version and I just gonna play this one. Kill Team it's a quick fix, so it's
Yeah.
nice.
Well, and it also has, like you were saying with your kids, right? Like that
Yep.
narrative element. It might get them hooked
Yeah.
on the hobby and
And
Right.
it's really turn based. It's like
oh
I
yeah.
do something, you do something, I do something, you do. It's always got that reaction to it, instantaneous reaction of, okay, what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Okay. It sounds more like a chess match than an army tabletop game kind of.
Yeah, it's very skirmish based. You only have like
Mm,
10 models. And
Hmm.
hmm
so you just have a lot of wounds with them and they could do fun stuff and every model does something different, which is great.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it can really lead into those, as you're saying, the narrative moments of one model doing something really cool that neither one of you really expected, or is like, the whole never tell me the odds type of
Yeah.
scenarios where
Yeah.
it's like all of a sudden it goes off. It's a
Yeah.
great moments can happen in that,
Mhm.
in much the same way that you can have great moments happen in boarding actions or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boarding actions. Talk about tapping into narrative focused playing.
Yeah.
It would be great. So I love Heresy, and my
Mhm.
favorite part of Heresy is the Zone Mortalis, which is essentially their equivalent of boarding action.
Yeah.
Smaller list, close quarters combat focused mechanic. But I mean, those things I feel it's just the terrain is hard to get your hands on.
That's the
Yeah.
But other than
problem.
that system is like screams to me fun tournament, you know?
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I'd
Yeah.
love to see that put together, but I mean, I don't know where we'd have to do a call out
Yeah.
across the planet to get people to help us
Yeah.
do tables for like a boarding action
Oh
tournament
yeah.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
On the topic of terrain, because Scott and I now have done a number of tournaments in the WTC terrain competitive world. And the tournaments you've run in Kingston, it's mostly, from what I've seen so far, is basically what the shop has on hand, and then
Yeah.
what some people bring in without without the structure, I guess, of the WTC being like,
The
you know,
mappings that they've
the
got for
mappings and like
medium
train.
terrain, heavy terrain, light terrain, and things
Mhm.
like that.
Is that your
Yeah.
preference to do?
It is. That's the narrative player in me.
Sure.
I want a board that looks cool
Yep.
Hmm.
more
Yep.
so than a board that so I compromised.
hmm
And what I say, especially before any big tournament,
hmm
is if anybody wants to set up a table any way they want,
hmm
bring some terrain and set it up.
Right.
And so there's a number of people who love the structured map
hmm
of the specific GW layouts, WTC layouts, all of that.
Hmm.
Right.
And then they bring tables and they set it up and they love
Okay.
it. Um, and I rotate people through tables anyway, so
Yep.
most
It,
people have a preference
Yeah.
yeah.
to the other. I generally locally, and I don't know if it's just the community we have,
hmm
I don't tend to get a lot of requests to be on those tables.
hmm
I get sometimes a lot of people going, "Oh, not that one," but
Right.
um,
Hmm.
again, it's just a preference. Other people love it.
hmm
I can see the value of it in a competitive setting because it's very equal and symmetrical and it
Yes.
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense. I totally get it.
Yeah.
And if we had 20 shells of that sort of terrain,
hmm
it probably would be the majority of tables
hmm
just to keep it easy for setup.
Right.
Right.
That's not what we have. I love the terrain that we have. It's awesome.
Yep.
There's all kinds of cool stuff in it.
It's
A lot
Yep.
so
of wacky
thematic.
stuff.
Yeah, there was
It's
one that had like a giant mushroom or something on it
Yeah.
on one of the
yeah.
tables. Like they are really great. That does actually bring up the question that I was going to have, but you've answered it already as to Paul's point was, what was the difference between the two terrain pieces? But
hmm
because you're leaning more to narrative and a story is happening on the board, it kind of makes a little bit more sense that it is kind of set up the way that you do have it set up. So I appreciate that a little bit more knowing that background into it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely for sure. And I mean, when I first went out and played a competitive WTC tournament and the terrain was, it has its own rules, and like even though you can see the models, you can't be seen because you're on the other side of the footprint, as opposed to I was used to playing your tournaments where it's basically what you see is what you get. So if you're behind this
Through line of
thing,
sight.
it's true line of sight, right? Which is more kind of real world is a silly way to put it when we're talking about plastic soldiers from the 41st millennium, but
This is real life.
this is real life. Damn it. And my space marine can see that guy, so I should be able to shoot him. So for me, it was a learning curve to bounce between the two.
Yeah.
And I did love, like, because I do have fond memories of like my first game at the Welcome to 10th tournament, and it being the like red mat with like the red uh uh boulders and stuff around it, and making it look like, oh, it's an alien planet. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you instantly go into that narrative into your head while you're playing the game. And I was just like, okay, this is
Yeah, it's
awesome.
fantastic.
It's a lot of fun. And I loved it. So what 40K army are you running? You're doing Ozark Bone Reapers for
Uh,
AOS?
yeah, for AOS, I have Seraphim, Ozark Bone Reapers, and Ogres.
Okay.
Um, for 40K, my main army I play most of the time
Mhm.
is Tyranids,
Okay.
mainly because so that was my first 40K army,
Okay.
and then I learned how to paint better. So I got rid of my army, completely bought them again,
Yeah.
just so I could do new paints.
Just start it over.
And
You're a
remember,
madman.
I'm not rich, I'm irresponsible.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So they're probably my main army. I
Okay.
also love demons. I have probably
Okay.
about 4,000 points of each demon god.
Wow.
So yeah, I
Wow.
love big monsters.
Right.
Just it's just really cool to me. And so to
Yeah.
see them
Hmm.
on the table, like triple bloodthirsters running across the board, always just
It,
looks cool. It
it
doesn't
looks
work
great.
out well, but
Yeah.
it looks cool to me.
Yeah.
I run Gene Sterling. I've got Sisters Votan. Um,
Nice.
just
Very
as a
cool.
side project because I'm an idiot.
Mm.
Um, I made, and I love Star Wars since I was a kid. I
Hmm.
made different Star Wars indexes with all the
Hmm.
40K rules. Just use Star Wars miniatures to make armies.
Wow.
Oh,
I just
wow.
I just love building armies and trying
Oh,
out
that's
fun,
cool.
wacky stuff.
That's
Right.
really awesome.
And so right now, you're in the 40K local Kingston League, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
And what are you playing in that league?
Tyranids.
It's Tyranids. Tyranids
Yep,
is what you're running. And then coming up on December 1st, you're running a 2,000 point Festival of the White Dwarf,
yep.
Age of Sigmar tournament. And what army are you running for it?
I'm going to run Bone Reapers for that
Bone
one.
Reapers. Very cool.
Yeah, I gotta win a game sometime. Just gotta stick
Well,
with it.
we got a league starting.
I know.
We have a 2,000 point Age of Sigmar league starting. I think officially started on Monday, but I don't think anyone's gotten any games in yet. Um, but there's got to be a chance to win a game in there
There's
somewhere.
gotta be.
There's
There's
got to
gotta be.
be, right? There's got to be. How are you enjoying fourth edition of AOS?
I really like it. I
Yeah.
really like it. It took me a minute to get my head around it so I could get rid
Okay.
of all the old rules.
Okay.
But it's really fun. I find it
Yeah.
really fun. It's pretty intuitive to play. The
Yeah.
models are great.
Out of this world. They are so good.
They've
AOS
got the
models,
best models. They really do. They
Yeah,
put 40K to shame. They put everything
yeah,
else to shame.
absolutely
they
to
do.
They
shame.
really do.
Yeah. I bought a box of Seraphim just based on how they look. I was like, I love the look of these blue lizard dudes. Like, I am all in on this. And I'm
Yeah,
a classic, like, heavy metal, like, uh, you know, guys with skulls and
yeah,
horns and big armor kind of
Spikes everywhere. Spikes on
spikes
spikes on
everywhere.
spikes.
Yeah, I like that kind of the chaos stuff. But when I saw like the whole range of AOS models, I was like, I don't think there's one that does not appeal to me to buy, collect, and paint.
Hmm.
yeah,
They are that good.
Yeah.
yeah. There's not a bad army. Like
No.
every army has great models,
Hmm.
fun rules that are different. Like all
Right.
the death armies, even you'd think, oh, they all run the same. No, they run completely different.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like Night Haunt runs so different from Bone Reapers and so different from vampires. And
Yeah, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. So you're really enjoying fourth. That's
Oh yeah,
great.
yeah.
So
No,
I didn't have to offload any rules. I jumped in new at your Welcome to Fourth Edition tournament, and I absolutely loved it.
yeah, it's fun.
And if I didn't say it at the time, like thanks again for running that, because that was a great tournament. I mean, my wife came out and played in
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Um, she had nothing but great things to say. It's such a good community that you've built and helped mentor here in Kingston that it's
Hmm.
so open to new players and encourages them to come back for more because she's coming to the Festival of the White Dwarf one, which is a
Awesome.
2,000 point tournament. So
Great.
uh, it speaks a lot of like the quality of your tournaments and
Thank you.
the spirit of the community itself,
Hmm.
just in the fact that you take people who traditionally weren't interested in this kind of hobbying at all,
Mhm.
does not have a Dungeons and Dragons background, didn't really, she played Catan and like
Yeah.
some serious board games, but like for someone like that to come in, play in this tournament, that had a great time and then wants to come back and play in another one, I think it speaks to the product that you're putting out essentially.
Hmm.
So good job, sir, because it's
Well,
it's
thank
a
you.
great time. And I promoted on our last show, and I can't promote it enough to people about coming out to Kingston and trying these tournaments because it's like your mission was to grow this community,
Yep.
Hmm.
and I think I mean the Secret Santa sells out, so I think it's a success.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's a clear sign. You should take some serious pride in it because it's a clear sign
Hmm.
of how good you've done at building the community. The fact that these things sell out so fast, the fact
Hmm.
that like you've been doing it for so long is
Yeah.
a testament to just how it must resonate with the community and you're
Hmm.
fostering. So good on you. Way to
Yeah.
go.
Well, thank you. Um,
Yeah.
I've always said to people, like I love our players that are in the top five.
Hmm.
I don't run my tournaments for them.
Yes.
I run my tournaments for the 75% of people that are never going to hit the top end, win a trophy,
Hmm.
whatever. But they have to come back because you can't run successful tournaments with only that 10% of the people who think that they're going to win.
Yep.
No,
Otherwise,
yeah, you're absolutely
you don't
right.
have a community, you don't have a tournament, you don't have. And I grew up in Northern Ontario, no
Hmm.
hobby stores.
Right.
So I look at a place like Kingston Gaming Nexus, um, and when I first saw it, I'm like, this is amazing.
Hmm.
How could
Hmm.
anybody not want to be here
Yeah.
24/7?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Rolling dice. Yeah.
Yeah, let's roll some dice, let's have fun, let's play games. And
Absolutely.
it's just I think Kingston is super lucky
Hmm.
to have
Definitely.
the community that we do and the stores that we do, like
Hmm.
SPT as well. They're fantastic. They've got a new
Hmm.
space,
Hmm.
um, and they've been running some tournaments as well. I love that because I get to go over there and play, and I don't have to
Yeah.
run
You don't
it.
have to TO anymore.
Yeah, I don't get bumped out, so I can actually play.
Yeah. Yeah. That's got to be one of I was going to ask you, like, kind of what's the worst part of TOing? And
That's
I
the
would,
worst part.
yeah, I was like, I guess I know the answer. When you show up and you're like, "Oh, I got my fun little 1,000 point list for these Secret Santa, and we've had a drop. Ah,
Yeah, I get to stand at the front,
yeah, no.
walk around, and see other people play. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a long 2 days on those big ones.
Yeah. Oh, oh man. So I think I know the answer to this, but what's your favorite tournament that you run?
Um, it's like you're talking about your kids, right? They're all
Hmm.
great, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a couple that are
yeah. I love them
favorite.
all equally.
I love Secret Santa.
Yeah.
It is so weird and it's
Hmm.
so offbeat and it's so fun, and nobody takes it too seriously,
Yes.
which I love. I love
Hmm.
Great
Yeah.
Crusade for that. We've done a few tournaments in the past. Like I tried a Highlander tournament back when the old Force organization for 40K was part of it. So you could
Okay.
only bring one of anything.
Right.
Right.
That's fun.
Those
Yeah,
are
that I
fun.
love that. I
Those
love
are
that.
fun.
I love that.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried the Art Boys tournaments, like where it's like hard competitive, and I honestly don't enjoy them. I don't enjoy
Okay.
running them. People get upset.
Okay.
Um, the one team tournament that I always bring up was
Hmm.
as a lesson in my own hubris. Was I had advertised it and it sold out like almost immediately. And this is four
Yeah.
person teams. This was a few years ago, and
Okay.
there was a lot of out of towners that were
Hmm.
coming. So I'm like, my local guys didn't get in. I like, there's a bunch of local people who want to play. Let's
Mhm.
expand.
Right.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
So 56 people played
Oh my God. At Kingston
in
Gaming
the Nexus
Nexus.
basement, which is
Oh
huge,
my
but not
God.
that huge.
No.
No. A lot of
Uh,
moon landings.
yeah,
And that's a lot of bums touching bums inadvertently for those that don't know what I'm
absolutely.
talking about. Oh, oh, sorry, fella. Sorry. Sorry.
And
Yeah.
the main problem was there wasn't a shared outlook for the experience.
Right.
So when people come to my Secret Santa tournament, they know exactly what to
Hmm.
expect. You know,
100%.
they show up with their grid and clean ones with their little Santa hats on them.
Right.
Sure.
They know it's fun and they
Yeah.
know it's not serious.
Hmm.
However, the people from out of town were used to a more competitive environment.
Hmm.
They played a lot harder.
Hmm.
And after the first game, I was getting people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, these people are jerks," and blah 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 blah, and they're complaining. I'm like, "Oh, don't worry about it. They're not used to us.
Hmm.
Let's welcome them and trying to be
Yeah.
a nice guy." And by day two, I was almost turfing people out of the tournament
Oh boy.
because of there was arguments and there's everything. And I said to Mike, "Never again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
never again am I putting myself through that."
Hmm.
Hats off to anybody who can run these giant tournaments.
Hmm.
With all kinds of this competitive stuff and beyond the rules
Hmm.
and be answering questions all the time. I don't have the knowledge or the will to
Right.
do it that way.
Right.
Well, and
But
there's the social contract and the actual player contract that they have to
Hmm.
adhere to, that you have to be respectful.
yeah,
You
Hmm.
know, this is just a game. We're just here to throw dice and play with our little figures.
Yeah.
But you have to be respectful of the person across the table from you. It's not life or death here. It is just a
no,
game.
we're
Yeah.
playing with toys.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like
This is it.
let's all get over
This
ourselves
is,
here.
yeah, this
Yeah.
is by and large adults playing with toys. That
Yes,
is exactly what this is. Little
and it's
toys that they paint themselves.
and it's
Yeah.
Hmm.
fun.
It's a
Yep.
lot of fun.
And if
It
you
is.
suck the fun out of it,
Yeah.
why are you doing it?
Yeah.
You know, I totally get that. I mean, fortunately enough, so I do enjoy competitive playing because I love the variety.
Yes,
Um, and fortunately, Scott's kind of home base out there at Critical Hit, the tournaments that that guy runs, seems to attract I'd say 99% positive crowd because I haven't yet
Yes.
had a bad experience with another player there. Whether it's, there's no interactions, there's no negative interactions, there's never been a gotcha moment, there's never been any attitude given. If
Hmm.
I've made a mistake in one of my rules, the other player's always been very gracious about, oh, don't worry about that. I
Yeah.
mean, they're beating me anyway, so what difference does it make? But some of them, the score does count, right? The
Yeah.
score, I don't know, I think some of them are, is it ITC? I don't know what the
ITC,
acronyms
Some of
yes.
them
stand
are up
for,
in the
but
rankings, and some of them are playing in a lot of the leagues and travel, do a
and
lot of the
travel,
travel
do a
around. So
circuit, and
yeah.
Yeah.
um, so thankfully there are some positive competitive scenes, but then Scott played a larger GT where it was over 60 players, and I could certainly see that there being a small percentage there that I'm sure were more out to kill, and that was
Hmm.
their mission, and just trying to crush people into the ground, and that would probably be not a fun time.
No.
No,
Not
no.
especially over 2 days.
Yeah.
That would be a
Especially if your first
grind.
couple of games for the weekend are
Yes.
getting, like absolutely stomped by,
Yeah,
then you're like spending the rest of the weekend going, "Oh, what
I
am I
got,
got myself into?"
Yeah.
yeah,
Why did
I
I
got,
do this?
what is the point? So, your tournaments that the ones I've attended, being your welcome to 10th, welcome to 4th, and then your Secret Santas. You always encourage in the tagline of the advertisement for the tournament, it's a beginner friendly. And
Mhm.
then I think there's quite often, I know with the Secret Santa one, there's a disclaimer like immediately there, like no hard lists.
Yeah.
So how do you define a hard list, like as the TO?
It's usually just because I play so much, right?
Hmm.
I play against a lot of armies.
Hmm.
I can usually look at a list and go, come on, guys, tone it down a little bit.
Right.
And I've never had a situation yet where someone said, well, no, I'm bringing what I want. No,
Sure.
we got a great community here. They're
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bunch of great guys. Even our competitive
Hmm.
players, so to speak, who usually are in the top 5 of every one of my tournaments. It's usually the same group of guys that are
Hmm.
all fighting for that. They come to these tournaments. The lists are very, very reasonable, very tame, very
Hmm.
fun, because that's the expectation at the outset. It took a while to get there,
Hmm.
Mhm.
as far as setting the social contract, like you were saying.
Right.
Um, but the one of the things that really changed the dynamic in the community was going to the draw prizes. So
Mm.
it's not like people were competing for money or product.
Right.
Right. Yeah, there's no golden tickets on the line either. There's nothing like
Nope.
that.
Yeah.
It's just literally like,
Everybody's got an equal chance at winning something by the end of it.
right.
Yeah, we don't do ITC points.
Hmm.
We flirted with that for a while, a number of years ago,
Okay.
and we said, you know what? No, it's more important that our community is welcoming,
Hmm.
Hmm.
um, because I want as many people to play this game as possible,
Hmm.
because I've found so much joy from it. Um,
Right.
and I got to share a lot of stuff with my son through it.
Hmm.
That was
Hmm.
That's
amazing.
that's amazing. Yep.
I've met a lot of great people. A lot of great people I consider to be friends are through this hobby, and
Gotcha.
and I don't want it to be cutthroat and mean.
Hmm.
Yep. I
No,
think that's really great. That is not to be too sentimental, but that's a really great view for the game and for tournaments and things is to have just have the fun and be enjoy it and spend the time. I mean, it's 2 to 3 hours of a day on one game. You better
hmm
enjoy the person that's across the table from you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because I've had those miserable games with
Yeah.
someone who's just not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's painful.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
trying to crack jokes. You're like, is this thing on? Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh man. No, and I mean, the reality is like, had you not run tournaments like Welcome to 10th edition, stuff like that, Scott and I wouldn't be doing this podcast.
well,
I'd have some more money in my bank account, but
it's
the
just money.
reality, it's just money. It comes and
Can't take it
goes.
with you.
I can't take it with me. But that kind of experience really did encourage us
Hmm.
to keep going and playing new people and get outside of your own house and
Yeah.
play and
Yeah,
Yeah.
in your
That
own
was
group.
literally the conversation we had after we left as we were driving back to Paul's house. It was,
Hmm.
you know what? I'm going to need to find some places locally and see if it's the same kind of events that I can get into. Because that was just, I got hammered, but God, I had
Hmm.
a lot of fun doing it.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Secret Santa's coming up. Are there any? So, what would you say are like units you do not want to see on people's lists? Is there anything in particular?
Oh.
Speaking as someone who likes Hypercrypt and has a monolith,
Hey,
completely unrelated.
one monolith. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
3 Catan. We're going to have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yes. Yeah. I don't have three. I only have two, and they're not on the list. They're too
Yeah,
expensive.
everybody
Um,
kind of knows those feel bad units, right? It's like,
Hmm.
yes.
well, I only brought 3 Lancers. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
Well, well, yeah, our Lancers, I guess with Oath, they are pretty punchy.
they
Because I'm like,
can
they
be,
hit on
right?
They can be.
threes, but
Yeah.
yeah, with Oath, it would be. They're cheap though for those Space Marine
Yeah, I
players,
They
know.
are.
right? Aren't they
That's
like
why they throw them in.
160 points or something like that? Like
Oh,
Yeah.
they're
it's
yeah, they're so cheap and they're so good. They're so efficient.
Yeah.
So
yes. Yeah, for sure.
The ones
Okay.
I hate are the repulsors, and not because they're like better than anything else, because I don't think
Mhm,
they are. They just
mhm.
take so long to shoot the thing because
Yeah.
they have so many weapons on it. It's like, all
There's
right, I'll go to the washroom and you come back and tell me how many saves I'm gonna make.
Yeah.
exactly right. Like that is a rep. The repulsor executioner is like, okay, I'm gonna start shooting, and I'll be with you in 15 minutes. Yeah, 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 for sure. So when on the subject of like, say, list building, for example,
Mhm.
how do you approach it? I like picking people's brains about how they craft their lists. So
Hmm.
how do you specifically craft your list?
I tend to have a core concept for each of the
Hmm.
armies that I play,
Okay.
um, based on not really tactics, but
Hmm.
sometimes it's based around that I got into this army because of these models. So I
Okay.
want them in every list.
Fair enough.
And then I have to build a concept around it. So I have a lot of Tyranids, like an unhealthy amount of Tyranids.
Hmm.
I might have a problem. But
Said every Tyranids player ever.
said every Tyranids player.
Yeah.
But my core, about 750 points of the list, doesn't
Hmm.
really change
Hmm.
because usually in every edition of the game, um, some things are just staples and they
Okay.
need to be in there in order for your list to function. So I start with that, and then I start thinking of the concept. Do I want to do like a rush list, a control list, trying to
Hmm.
get board control, which is so big in 10th. You can
Hmm.
have just garbage units, but if you have enough
Hmm.
of them,
Hmm.
you
Yep.
can score the points, right? So
Yep.
that's a whole
Move,
concept of the
block.
list.
Hmm.
I like big monsters, but I
Hmm.
mean, there was a few weeks ago I played against just a horde of Kroot,
Hmm.
and I was like, I got dummied because my big powerful monsters couldn't do anything. I couldn't chew through that many bodies, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So the different concepts of a list can really lean you into a certain type of play that you like. I really like melee more so than
Hmm.
shooting.
Hmm.
Tyranids are in a spot right now where melee is not their best feature for some weird reason, which always
Hmm.
seems weird to me. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it
I have
seems
this core
counterintuitive.
shooting core that I
Hmm.
use, and then I build upon that. Um, I find it's always great to just cover some bases, right? You have to have some
Right.
anti-tank. You have to.
Okay.
You have to have something that, if you can, either infiltrates or comes on the board later,
Hmm.
because you need that. You
Yeah.
need that option to do an action when you don't think you're gonna. You draw that tactical card and you're like, oh, behind enemy lines. You have to be
Right.
able to do it. Deep strike,
Hmm.
infiltrate,
Hmm.
even strategic reserves. You need to have something that can do that, and you need to have something that control the mid board.
Hmm.
Or you can go the complete opposite way of vacate the mid board and just come around all the ends, right?
Right.
More of a
Right.
Tyranid Vanguard type, where you're just kind of
Okay.
surrounding your enemy.
Okay.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I
And
like that
so,
idea of having something, knowing that I have to have something that's going to deep strike or reserve or
mhm,
something like
Yeah.
that. Because there's always that part in the game where you're like, God, if I just had that one unit that could
mhm,
come
Oh,
in here.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Strat Reserves was definitely, I think, one of the first kind of tips I picked up on when it came to like building a list
mhm.
and utility is like Strat Reserve is like a hugely beneficial
Yeah.
tactic or deployment to take use of for sure. So you're a tactical player, you're not a fixed player, or do you
I,
switch it
I'm
up?
I'm tactical. I,
Okay.
I like having the surprise
Yeah.
some ways, and just having to think on my feet and
Hmm.
um, get in better positions. And I find it's in some ways it's easier to play fixed
Yes.
when your opponent's list gives it to you.
Right.
So if I show up with as I just did in the league, with a bunch of monster mash Tyranids, my
Hmm.
opponent looked at that and went, oh, we're going to bring it down. Start
Hmm.
there. So sometimes you just give them the fixed, right? But
Yeah.
I enjoy tactical more, especially this card pack as opposed to the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
I've heard.
find pariahs really good for their tacticals.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that. I
Hmm.
find it's a common thing I'm reading online and talking to people. They're like, "Oh no, Pariah is built for tactical. It's
Yeah,
fixed isn't as open to most armies." I've been playing mostly fixed lately only because it helps me remember my rules. But
yeah,
then again, I've been focusing on one army. I've been focused on Necrons, Hypercrypt, which lends itself to fixed because of
Hmm.
behind and
yeah.
established
Oh, for sure.
locus.
Yeah,
And for me, it just helps me build on that base of remembering my rules and not like, oh, can this unit do that to do containment? And then can I shoot? Which one is battle line? Like
Yeah.
for a newer player, it has helped me a little bit, and it's helped me play faster,
yeah,
which I guess isn't necessarily a pro, but I always hated when I first played going back to my data cards and then being like, this hits on a 3. Okay. And it has, oh shoot, 6 shots. Okay, here we go. The other guy's asleep in his chair over there.
Yeah.
I,
Um,
I find a lot can be gained by learning to play your list efficiently, more
mhm.
so than fast. So
Yeah,
there's a
okay.
lot of games where people are still rolling for stuff that doesn't matter. In
Right.
turn four, there's 15 minutes left on the clock. Just do what
Hmm.
matters. Just
Yep.
play efficient. Do the things that are going to score you your points. Do the
Yes.
things that are going to get you in a good position for later. Back when I used to play Warhammer Fantasy before Age of
Mm.
Sigmar, one of the players in our club, Frank, he was the top fantasy player in Canada
Oh, wow.
Wow.
and never beat him. Uh, just didn't happen. He won
It's
every
never
tournament.
happened.
But he always told me that the way that he looked at the game
Hmm.
was he wasn't looking at the turn that we were on.
Hmm.
He was looking at where he wanted his units to be turn three.
That's
Okay.
He always
fascinating.
saw that as the crucial turn that you
Hmm.
could make or break a game. So if he knew
That.
he needed to have these units in this position on turn three, he knew he could lock it.
That's
Mm.
fascinating because that always takes me back to the old saying from the great one, Wayne Gretzky, "Don't be where the puck is, be where it's going to be,"
Yeah.
type
Mhm.
of idea. I'm
I
not a sports guy in any way, so it's impressive that I had a sports analogy.
it's like, how do you Wayne Gretzky? I was like, where did that come from? Whose brother is this?
What
What is going
podcast are
on
you
here?
on?
Yeah.
Yeah, what have you
Very
been
good.
listening? Spitting chiclets. That's what he's listening to
Uh,
now. Um,
I'm a well-rounded individual.
that is, yeah. I'm a well-rounded podcaster, I'll have you know. Um, that just blew my mind because as you said that piece of advice there, I think back to my tournament matches and I'm like, it really is turn 3 where things have either went pretty good for me or that's where I was doing great up until turn 3
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's done a 180 and it's like I'm losing. I'm not scoring points anymore and it's all downhill from there.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
Wow.
most armies have a hammer turn, right? Like
Yes.
orcs are the biggest example of that, right? Their
Hmm.
wa turn,
Mhm.
they're going. And if they
Right.
don't get the damage they need to do and they don't get the impact they have, they're in a rough spot.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes when I'm playing against, I did not do this successfully in my league game, but I'm trying to look at ways to stall or piecemeal some of it so
Mhm.
that the wa turn's not as impactful. But most armies have that, right?
Hmm.
Like if you have a
Right.
Space Marine list and it's full of like repulsors and lancers
Mhm.
and a huge gun line with protection, they want to hammer you early,
Yep.
but they're not going to be great at board control.
Yeah.
No.
So you can use terrain, you can get into positions, and you're like, I don't have to kill a tank if I don't need to,
Hmm.
Right.
but I need to control this board and I need to know where I'm going to be later.
Mhm. No, that's great advice. That's
Hmm.
absolutely great advice because too often I think I get so sucked into that round
Yeah.
and I'm like, what can I do in this round? And it goes back to what you said about playing efficiently because I'm often like, well, these 10 warriors can shoot that guy. They got lethal hits and it might plink off a wound or two, but I'm like, in the longer run, that might probably makes no difference to
Yeah.
what's going to happen for the rest of that game. I'm better off to like consider where I'm going to position them next
Mhm.
rather than yeah.
Sometimes you gain more by just advancing a unit
Hmm.
rather than even shooting them.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Those are good points. Those are definitely good things to consider. And then do you have the same approach to AOS as you do to 40K with the list building?
Um, I I'm pretty bad at AOS. I gotta be honest. Um, I'm a sucker for models.
Yep.
So I get a concept in my head and I start
Hmm.
painting models. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And then I get it on the table. I'm like, what was I thinking?
What do you mean it's got strike last?
It's like, oh right, these aren't good at this.
It's got a 5-up save
Yeah,
and no ward. Oh, dang.
yeah. So I
Hits on
try
fours,
with
wounds on
AOS,
fives. Yeah.
but it's usually around a concept. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't advise people do this, but it's usually around models I like.
I love that. I love that because I mean it's the models that got me kind of collecting and starting this.
Mhm.
And they're definitely when I was building my Necrons list for my Hypercrypt, I'm like, I love the Scorpack models. They were my favorite to paint. And I actually love Warriors too, because I had a
Yeah,
lot of fun painting them. And so
I've
I'm
got a
like,
ton.
I want them on lists. But
Mhm.
like very much the same way. I don't care if it's not the best use of 100 points or 90 points. I have them. I want to play them.
You
Yep.
can play them at Secret Santa. Scorpix are
Yeah.
great for Secret Santa.
Yeah. They're on. I have a Secret Santa list. Scorpex are on them. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. My Scorpex are definitely on them
Yeah,
because
I love that idea of having the units that you're just those are my auto takes. They're the
yeah.
ones regardless of what the list is. I'll make something work with them, but I
mhm,
want to have them because I like
Mm-hmm.
them.
yeah,
I really I because you're right, it comes back to the hobby and that's what we got into. We got into this to play with little toy figures and by God,
mhm.
if that's my favorite one, I want it to be there every game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Sigmar too, I find is way more forgiving on you're bringing in a list because you like it, or you're bringing a
Yeah.
model because you like
Okay.
it. Sigmar's not as I don't find it as make or break as 40K. 40K, there's a lot more tuning with
Hmm.
lists, and if you have the wrong concept, it can go sideways very, very quickly. You
Hmm.
don't bring
Right.
enough anti-tank
Yep.
and you run against Imperial Knights, you're in for a bad time.
You're in for
Yep.
a bad time. Yeah, you don't have enough. You got no punch up, right? And
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
you've got nothing to get rid of them, and they are just walking all over you, literally.
Yep.
Absolutely.
With Sigmar, because it's you always hit on a certain number, you always
Yep.
wound on a certain number. It doesn't matter if they brought a giant 500 point unit or they brought a
Yep.
bunch of skinks. You can play into it.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely, like 100%. It's got that. It has that built-in, I don't know, balance, I guess, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word. Um, with that, you know, here's what you need to hit and here's what you need to wound. So
Hmm.
it has that built in. Whereas, yeah, if you brought, yeah, certain units just to fight Imperial Knights, you're like, well, I'm not, I hit on threes, but I need sixes to wound, and
Yeah.
it's got a 2-up save, and I've got no AP.
Yep.
So good luck to me, kind of
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And you have to have in some form, unless you do a complete skew list in 40K, you have to have some all comers idea in mind if you're going to go
Mhm.
to a tournament, right? You have to
Yep.
know what you're going to do against armor. You have to know what you're going to do against hordes,
Yes,
and you have to know how you're going to score secondaries.
Hmm.
You cover those,
absolutely.
you're golden.
Yeah. I find my that it's funny because as I keep playing and try and learn the game better, and I'm all I used to, ignore my secondaries and work on the primary, and then the odd time try and score a secondary, and then it went the opposite way where I was scoring all my secondaries and zeroing primaries unless it was the one unit I left sitting on home.
Yeah.
Uh, so that for me is like the constant balance of like that happy medium of doing primaries and secondaries simultaneously is like
Hmm.
what I'm slowly working on. But Oh,
Well,
that's too
well,
funny.
Scott, you're talking about Gene Stereotype. That's a
Yeah.
completely different way to play because
I know.
oftentimes you will have more than 2,000 points of your army destroyed.
Yeah. They come back though, don't they? They
They
come
come
back.
back, so you
Yeah.
can lose like 3,000 points and it's fine.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's the one thing that scares me because I'm still at that stage of not wanting to lose models and being very precious about it and being
Hmm.
not deflated, but like, oh, why did they have to die?
Yeah.
That type of thing. But I know going into a gene stiller, it'd be like, no, I kind of want them to so that they can come back in a better spot.
oh yeah, and it's great because when they fail you, as they always will, you can
Yeah.
just point at them and go, "You deserve to die. I hope
This
you
is
die."
it.
You
This
deserved
is
it.
it.
Your opponent's like, "You want me to kill him?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, go for it. I
Go
don't
Yeah.
for
like those
it.
guys anyway."
Go for
Those guys suck. I want them gone.
it. They've been a disappointment to me since I painted them,
Absolutely.
destroyed
Yeah.
them.
Oh, that's great. That's too funny.
Yeah.
Do you have an eye on your next army already? Are you flirting with somebody recently?
I
Oh,
you know there's
no, there's
always another
somebody.
one.
There's a
There's always
twinkle in that eye there.
I I sell about like 2 or 3 armies a year,
I see that. I'm on your board. I see it in the trade
and then I
depot.
just
Yeah.
recycle to another one. I my right now I've bought some kill teams, so I've
Yeah.
got like 3 of
Sure.
those on the go.
Mhm.
But my next army, like full 2,000 point army, is probably going to be another Sigma army. I just love the
Yeah.
models,
Okay.
and I
The
just
game
want
is
to
so
build
much
anything.
fun.
The game's fun. You don't have
Game
to.
is so much
You
fun.
can buy what you want,
Mhm.
and it still works,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
like.
I really like that
That's a
part about
benefit to it for
Sigmar.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to, I know you and I are both signed up for the 2000 point league. I'm really looking forward to getting some practice in and
Mhm.
uh, it's such a fun game.
It's
Mhm.
very fun.
Absolutely.
Very fun.
It's a riot. Well, that was very good. I really loved having you on the show. Thanks very much for taking the time to chat with us.
Hmm.
Um, I'm excited. So I'll plug a few things. Secret Santa, unfortunately, to our listeners, is sold out in
So,
72 hours, I think,
yeah.
after
After
two
being expanded
extensions.
twice,
Yeah, two expansion packs, and it's still gone.
just
So
light. It's going to be warm in there.
yeah, I'll be
Just
Yes.
to
wearing
warn you.
shorts. I
Yeah.
promise you, I am wearing shorts because, yes,
Yeah.
Kingston Gaming Nexus is a great venue to play in. However, 40 bodies in that back room, it gets spicy pretty quickly.
Yes.
This summer, when I ran that tournament, I literally almost said, I will pay for AC. I
Yeah,
will install it. I
it-
don't care
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
something else.
brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah.
The winter ones aren't as bad.
Yeah.
No. The Welcome to 40K 10th edition one was yeah, it was hot. It was very hot.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we'll see those that have signed up for Secret Santa at Kingston Gaming Nexus on December 7th. It's gonna be a riot. I can't wait. It's one of my favorite tournaments ever.
Hmm.
And then of course Festival of the White Dwarf. I love the title. I
Yeah.
love the title. It's awesome.
Awesome.
I can't wait for that because I had a riot at your Welcome to AOS fourth edition.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
absolutely loved that tournament and had a lot of fun, and it's a great little community too.
And you know
Um,
what? I encourage people, even if they've never played Age
uh,
of Sigmar, I don't care if you just put your models together that morning.
yeah,
Come on out.
Hmm.
We'll teach you.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I can say that from basically firsthand experience because my wife and I had only played a couple games against each other and then rolled right into your 1000 point Welcome to tournament and was like had an awesome time. And she
Awesome.
found everyone she played had all the patience in the world. She also played against people who were in the exact same boat as her. It
Mhm.
was like literally, I think her first opponent, it was his first game of AOS kind of thing. So, yeah, no, it is such a great group of people. So, December 1st, if you haven't signed up, go to Kingston Gaming Nexus and sign up for Festival of the White Dwarf. It's going to be a blast.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's lots of
Absolutely
spots for that
guaranteed.
one, so it's great. And then our club champs is coming up in February. It's a full weekend tournament.
Okay.
It's right around the Family Day weekend
Okay.
Okay. Let me
because then
get
I
out of the
get to have a day to recover after the 2 day tournament before I have to go back to work.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
that is so can anyone sign up for that one, or do you have to have participated in the league?
No, no, it has nothing to do with the leagues. The leagues are all actually run not by me. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I always encourage as many people from the community come out, run something. If you're passionate about a game,
Hmm.
come run it.
Yeah,
I'll try it.
That's awesome.
sure.
What
Oh,
we'll
that's
do is
great.
we'll have you on again at the end of December, early January to plug whatever's coming up more recently as
Yeah,
Oh,
that'd be
or
a
that'd be
great
or
awesome.
idea.
soon as well. Just to kind of get as many people out, new players out there as we possibly can.
Get some of our friends from the GTA to come down too.
Hmm.
Kingston's a beautiful town. It's very friendly and welcoming, and we've played a good mix of people who are like, yeah, they're into the competitive side of things, but they're also great sports and
Yeah.
like would be a great addition, and I think would have a lot of fun at some of these other tournaments. Absolutely.
Well, and
Okay.
you guys have been talking about critical hits so many times on this podcast. I'm like, oh, I should go check those guys out.
It
Yeah.
is
They sound
a
It's
fun.
lot of fun.
it is
It's a
fun.
good group. It is the WTC like
Yeah, yeah,
strict layouts. But we had Scott and I keep having a lot of fun there. We meet a lot of good people, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's just fun to see like what other people are doing too,
Yeah.
right? Other
Yeah.
people out there. I'm also tempted. I mean, we're on Ottawa's doorstep basically too, and
yeah.
then there's tons of events in Ottawa.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. You'll
and
have to
I've
check some of those out.
yeah, and I know there's a so Scott played somebody who organizes Petawawa
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
competitive tournament.
yeah. I've gone to some of the ones in Petawawa. I've traveled to, and they run a good set
Yeah,
of tournaments
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Lots
We'll
of fun.
have them on. So
yeah.
yeah.
To be continued.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thanks very much for coming. This has been
Yeah.
fantastic.
oh, thanks for
Good.
having me.
Yeah. Thanks again, Shannon. And we'll see
Yeah,
you. Well, we won't see you in the Consolation League, but you'll be adjacent.
I'll be in there. Don't worry.
You'll be in there for maybe AOS.
I'm heading to an AOS tournament. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be right at the bottom where I belong. Be fun to roll dice with you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
Okay.
right.
Uh,
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.